The warning. The massive doors of the Imperial Palace's Grand Hall swung open with a thunderous echo. Ambassador Sarah Chen strode forward, her footsteps steady despite the dozens of alien eyes fixed upon her. The Galactic Empire's Council of Lords, representing over 300 species and 10,000 worlds, watched the lone human with a mixture of contempt and curiosity. Supreme Lord Vex Thor, a towering figure with iridescent scales and multiple sets of compound eyes, leaned forward on his crystalline throne. "The human delegation is recognized," he announced, his translator converting his clicks and chirps into standard Galactic. "Though we fail to understand the urgency of this unscheduled appearance." Sarah maintained perfect composure as she reached the center of the hall. Her simple black uniform stood in stark contrast to the ornate robes and biomechanical augmentations worn by the alien counselors. "Supreme Lord, honored council, I come before you today not to negotiate, but to deliver humanity's final warning." A ripple of surprised murmurs and electromagnetic pulses swept through the assembled aliens. Some species changed colors in amusement, others released pheromones of aggression. Vex Thor's scales shifted to a deeper shade of purple, a sign of annoyance in his species. "A warning?" he asked, mandibles clicking. "Your species has barely mastered faster-than-light travel. Your colonies number less than 20. What warning could you possibly have for the Empire?" Sarah pulled a small holographic projector from her pocket. With a gesture, it displayed a detailed map of Imperial space. "For the past 50 years, you have systematically stripped resources from developing worlds, enslaved countless species, and eliminated any civilization that showed too much promise. You believed humanity to be primitive, weak, and isolated. That was your first mistake." The map zoomed in on various locations throughout Imperial space. Red dots began appearing, first dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. These markers represent human operatives and assets already in place throughout your empire. "We have infiltrated every level of your society, from your lowest mining colonies to your most secure military installations." "Impossible," shouted Lord Crastal, his crystalline form vibrating with outrage. "Our security protocols are based on technology we surpassed decades ago." Sarah interrupted. "While you watched our visible colonies and dismissed us as primitives, we were building something far greater in secret. We have technologies you haven't even dreamed of yet." She pressed another button, and the hologram shifted to show a massive fleet of ships unlike anything in the Imperial Registry. Their designs were sleek, predatory, and distinctly human. "This is just one of our hidden fleets. We have dozens more, waiting for the signal. You see, humanity learned from Earth's history. We knew that showing our true strength too early would make us a target. So we played weak. We played primitive, all while preparing for this moment." Vex Thor rose from his throne, looming over the human ambassador. "You dare threaten the Empire? We could crush your visible colonies in days." Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You could, but then you'd have to deal with our response. We're giving you one standard month to begin dismantling your slave operations, withdrawing from developing worlds, and preparing for a new era of genuine cooperation between species. If you refuse..." She gestured at the hologram, which now showed a demonstration of human military capabilities that made several council members recoil in horror. "Those are planet-killer weapons," gasped Lord Crastal. "No species would dare. We don't want to use them," Sarah said firmly. "Humanity prefers peace, but we will not stand by while you continue to enslave and destroy others. The choice is yours, Supreme Lord. 1 month. Reform or burn." Before anyone could respond, Sarah turned and walked toward the exit. Just before reaching the doors, she paused and looked back. "Oh, and don't bother trying to track my departure or plan an ambush. As I said, you have no idea what we're truly capable of." The doors closed behind her with a final, resonating boom, leaving the Imperial Council in stunned silence. In orbit above the capital, Sarah's primitive shuttle disappeared from all Imperial sensors, cloaked by technology centuries beyond their understanding. As she prepared to jump to faster than light, she sent a simple encrypted message to Earth Command. Warning delivered. Prepare for their response. The next month would determine whether the galaxy would see peace or learn exactly why humanity had spent 50 years preparing for war. Shadow operations. Deep within the asteroid field of the Omega Centauri cluster, Admiral James Chen watched holographic displays flicker to life around him. The command center of Bastion Alpha, humanity's true military headquarters, hummed with activity. This massive installation, carved into an artificial asteroid of dark matter composite, had remained undetectable to Imperial sensors for 30 years. Status report, Chen ordered, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. Colonel Maya Rodriguez, head of Special Operations, stepped forward. Shadow teams report full readiness across all sectors. Admiral, Operation Ghost Protocol is proceeding exactly as planned. Her augmented eyes flickered with data streams as she gestured to different sections of the galactic map. Our agents have successfully compromised 89% of critical Imperial infrastructure. We can shut down their entire communication network with a single command. And the Lazarus Protocol? Chen asked, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. Maya's expression turned grave. All teams are in position. If the Empire makes a move against our visible colonies, we can evacuate the entire population through quantum tunnels before their ships even arrive. The colonies themselves are rigged with antimatter charges. Anyone trying to occupy them will find only atomic fire. The Admiral nodded, turning his attention to a different display showing the Empire's capital world. Their sensors, operating on principles the Empire couldn't even detect, provided a real-time view of the chaos unfolding in the Imperial Palace. The Council had been in emergency session for 3 days straight. Dr. Harrison, Chen called out. What's the status of Project Prometheus? A hologram materialized nearby. Dr. Sarah Harrison, head of Advanced Weapons Research, her avatar projected from her lab 20 light-years away. The quantum disruptors are ready. Admiral, once activated, they'll create localized bubbles where the laws of physics simply stop working. We can shut down their ship's drives, their weapons, even their life support, all without firing a single conventional shot. A weapon they can't defend against because it operates on principles they don't even know exist, Chen mused. And the ethical constraints. Fully implemented, sir, the system will only target military assets. Civilian populations will be unaffected. She paused, her holographic form flickering slightly. Though I should note that the psychological impact of seeing their invincible ships simply stop working might be devastating to their society. Chen turned to another officer, Captain Wang, status of the Ghost Fleet. Captain Lisa Wang, her neural implants glowing faintly beneath her skin, brought up a new tactical display. 10,000 ships ready for immediate deployment, Admiral. All equipped with quantum drive systems, phase shift armor, and consciousness transfer backup systems for the crews. The Empire thinks we have maybe 50 old model ships. They have no idea what's waiting in the shadows. And our allies? Chen asked. Maya stepped forward again. The enslaved species are ready to rise up on our signal. We've spent decades building underground resistance networks, providing them with weapons and training through our shadow operatives. The Empire's own subjects will tear it apart from within. A priority alert flashed across the command center's main screen. Admiral, Maya reported, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout Imperial space. They're mobilizing for war. Chen's expression hardened. They're calling our bluff. Typical Imperial arrogance. He straightened his uniform and looked at each of his officers in turn. Initiate Phase 2. Maya, give the resistance cells their activation codes. Dr. Harrison, power up the quantum disruptors but keep them in standby mode. Captain Wang, move the Ghost Fleet into position, but maintain phase shift camouflage. Sir, Maya interjected, What about the diplomatic option? The Empire still has 2 weeks left to comply with our demands. They made their choice the moment they started mobilizing their fleets, Chen replied. But we'll honor the deadline. It will give us time to complete our preparations. He walked to the center of the command room, his cybernetic eye scanning the tactical displays. The Empire believes they're dealing with a primitive species making desperate threats. In 2 weeks, they'll learn that humanity spent the last 50 years building not just weapons, but an entirely new form of warfare. He turned to his communications officer. Send word to Ambassador Chen. Tell her to prepare for Phase 2. The Empire chose pride over peace. Now they'll learn why that was their last mistake. As the orders went out, Chen watched the Imperial fleets gathering on the tactical display. They were impressive. Hundreds of thousands of ships, representing the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. And they were completely obsolete. In 2 weeks, the galaxy would learn that humanity hadn't just been preparing for war. They'd been preparing to revolutionize the very nature of warfare itself. The Empire's mighty fleets would face an enemy they couldn't see, using weapons they couldn't understand, fighting in ways they couldn't even comprehend. A shadow war was about to become very, very real. First strike. The Imperial deadline expired not with diplomatic messages, but with silence. In the heart of Imperial space, aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, Supreme Lord Vexthor prepared to deliver what he believed would be a crushing lesson to humanity. All fleets report ready, Supreme Lord, announced Fleet Commander Zixral, his crystalline form pulsing with anticipated victory. 100,000 ships, positioned to strike all human colonies simultaneously. We will erase their pitiful civilization in a single hour. Vexthor's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Begin the at. The words died in his throat as every light, every display, and every system on the bridge suddenly went dark. Throughout the massive flagship, confusion turned to panic as primary and backup systems failed simultaneously. In the darkness, a hologram appeared. Ambassador Sarah Chen, her image crystal clear despite the ship's power failure. We warned you, Supreme Lord. We gave you a chance for peace. You chose war. Across Imperial space, the same scene played out on tens of thousands of ships. Entire fleets went dark, their mighty engines silent, their weapons powerless. On countless Imperial worlds, carefully hidden quantum transmitters activated, releasing signals that bypassed all known forms of communication jamming. In the Bastion Alpha Command Center, Admiral Chen watched the operation unfold. Ghost Fleet, execute attack pattern Omega. Shadow teams, you have permission to emerge. Throughout Imperial space, ships simply appeared where none had existed before, dropping their phase shift camouflage. Their designs were alien even to the Empire's extensive databases, sleek, predatory vessels that seemed to drink in light itself. But more terrifying was what happened next. On hundreds of Imperial worlds, beings that had appeared to be ordinary citizens, dock workers, administrators, even some high-ranking military officers, suddenly changed. Quantum-engineered disguise systems deactivated, revealing human operatives who had been hiding in plain sight for years. In the Imperial capital's primary military command center, General Krastal watched in horror as his own deputy commander's appearance shimmed and changed. The alien he'd worked with for 5 years was revealed to be Captain Maya Rodriguez of Human Special Operations. How? Krastal gasped. Our genetic scans. Maya smiled grimly. You scanned for what you knew to look for. We operated on principles your science hasn't discovered yet. She pressed a small device on her wrist, and every weapon in the command center's armory disintegrated at the molecular level. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Supreme Lord Vexthor found himself trapped on his own bridge as quantum fields restricted all movement. Ambassador Chen's hologram walked toward him, each step echoing in the darkness. What you're experiencing is a quantum disruption field, she explained, her voice calm. It selectively alters the laws of physics within a defined space. Your ships can't move. Your weapons can't fire. Your transmission systems can't send distress calls. You are, in every practical sense, helpless. Impossible. Vex Thorhist. No species could. That was your fundamental error, Sarah interrupted. You judged us by your own limitations. While you watched our primitive colonies and outdated ships, we were building something far beyond your comprehension. Across imperial space, the true scale of humanity's infiltration became clear. Critical military installations found themselves under control of embedded human operatives. Resistance movements, armed with human technology, rose up against their imperial oppressors. The mighty empire, which had dominated the galaxy for millennia, found itself paralyzed in a single coordinated stroke. In Bastion Alpha, Admiral Chen watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 complete, he announced. All primary military targets neutralized, civilian populations and infrastructure untouched, as planned. Sir, Maya's voice came through the quantum comm. The Imperial leadership is secure. Their ability to coordinate a response has been completely severed. Chen nodded. Initiate Phase 2. Show them exactly what happens when they force humanity to go to war. Throughout Imperial space, the Ghost Fleet began precise, surgical strikes against military targets. Their weapons operated on principles that simply ignored traditional defenses. Phase-shifted torpedoes passed through the strongest shields as if they didn't exist. Quantum disruptors turned mighty battleships into floating hulks without damaging a single component. They simply stopped working. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. In less than 6 hours, the greatest military force in known space had been rendered completely impotent, not through destruction, but through the application of sciences so advanced they appeared to break the very laws of physics themselves. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war, they had revolutionized it. And the galaxy would never be the same. On the Eternal Dominion's darkened bridge, Ambassador Chen's hologram faced the Supreme Lord. This is only the beginning. Surrender now, agree to our terms, and no one else needs to be harmed. Continue to resist. She gestured, and a nearby view screen activated, showing the Ghost Fleet's true capabilities. And we'll be forced to show you what these ships can really do. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if the Empire would choose wisdom over pride. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's first strike would be remembered as the beginning of a new era of peace, or the start of a war that would reshape the very fabric of space-time itself. The Empire strikes back. In the depths of uncharted space, aboard the Empire's most secret installation, Grand Admiral Rix Ken activated protocols that hadn't been used in 10,000 years. The facility, hidden inside a quantum singularity, housed the Empire's last resort weapons, technologies deemed too dangerous to use except in civilization-ending circumstances. The humans believe they've seen the extent of our power. Rixkin addressed the Emergency Council of Surviving Imperial Leaders, his crystalline form pulsing with deadly determination. They will learn otherwise. Deep within the facility, ancient machines stirred to life. The Empire had not survived for millions of years without contingencies. From quantum storage, they retrieved weapons that had ended entire civilizations. In Bastion Alpha, Admiral Chen's victory celebration was cut short by urgent alerts. Dr. Harrison's hologram appeared, her expression grave. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures, unlike anything we've ever seen. They're accessing technologies we didn't know they had. Across human-controlled space, reality itself began to tear. The Empire had unleashed their Omega-level weapons, devices that could rewrite the laws of physics on a stellar scale. Massive void ships, constructed from dark matter and negative energy, emerged from hidden dimensional pockets. All units, battle stations, Chen ordered, his cybernetic eye processing the impossible readings. They're using restricted technologies, weapons that violate the fundamental constants of the universe itself. The Imperial counterattack was devastating. Their void ships could literally erase space-time, creating zones of absolute nullity that even humanity's advanced technology couldn't penetrate. Quantum disruptors proved useless against ships that existed partially outside normal space-time. In the command center, Maya's tactical display showed mounting casualties. "Sir, we're losing contact with Ghost Fleet Squadrons 7 through 12. The Imperial weapons, they're not just destroying our ships, they're erasing them from existence, retroactively." Chen watched as battles that they had won hours ago suddenly became defeats. Imperial technology was literally rewriting history on a local scale. Dr. Harrison, analysis. "They're using what we theorized but never dared to build." Sarah's hologram flickered as reality fluctuated around them. "Weapons that don't just destroy their targets, they erase them from the causal timeline. Our victories are being undone because, from the universe's perspective, they never happened." The Empire's counteroffensive pushed forward relentlessly. Their void ships, powered by enslaved singularities, carved paths of unreality through space. Human vessels found their advanced technology countered by weapons that simply ignored the rules of existence. In orbit around New Terra, humanity's largest colony, Captain Lisa Wong watched in horror as an Imperial void ship approached. Their weapons, they're not just breaking physics, they're breaking causality itself. But humanity had not spent 50 years preparing for war without considering even the most extreme possibilities. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the quantum comm. "All units, initiate Protocol Omega. Authorization code. Phoenix Rising." Throughout human space, hidden quantum processors activated. Dr. Harrison's face appeared on every command display. "Warning. Protocol Omega will fundamentally alter the nature of local spacetime. All units prepare for reality shift." The human response was not to fight the Empire's reality-warping weapons, but to change the rules of reality itself. Quantum field generators, hidden throughout human space, activated simultaneously. They didn't try to counter the Imperial weapons. Instead, they rewrote the physical laws that allowed those weapons to function. In sectors controlled by human quantum fields, the Imperial void ships found themselves suddenly bound by new laws of physics, laws written by humanity. Their causality-breaking weapons failed as the very concept of causality was rewritten on a local level. Impossible. Grand Admiral Rix Ken watched as his mighty void fleet was neutralized not by superior firepower, but by humanity's ability to literally rewrite the rules of warfare. They can't have this level of control over fundamental forces. But they did. Humanity had spent decades preparing not just weapons and ships, but the ability to dictate the very nature of reality within their spheres of influence. The Empire's mighty weapons, designed to break the laws of physics, found themselves bound by new laws, humanity's laws. The battle raged across space, reality itself becoming a weapon as both sides fought not just with ships and energy weapons, but with the fundamental forces of the universe. Imperial void ships clashed with human reality anchors, each trying to impose their own version of physics on contested space. In Bastion Alpha, Admiral Chen watched the conflict unfold across multiple planes of existence. "We didn't want this," he muttered. "We offered peace. They chose to escalate to weapons that threaten the very fabric of space-time." "Sir," Maya reported, "the Empire is pulling back their void ships. Our quantum fields are holding. We've contained the damage to local space-time." Chen nodded grimly. "They thought they could counter our technology with forbidden weapons. Instead, they forced us to reveal our true capabilities. The ability to not just use the laws of physics, but to rewrite them." The battle had reached a new level. Both sides now knew that this war would not be won by ships or soldiers, but by who could better control the fundamental forces of the universe itself. The next phase would determine not just the fate of civilizations, but the very nature of reality in contested space. The final confrontation was approaching, and the galaxy would never be the same. Checkmate. The galactic core pulsed with energies never before witnessed in the history of the cosmos. Two civilizations, both wielding powers that could reshape reality itself, faced each other in what would be their final confrontation. The very fabric of space-time trembled. In the quantum-shielded chambers of the Imperial Palace, Supreme Lord Vexthor received the most devastating report in Imperial history. The humans, his science director stammered. They've surrounded every major Imperial world with quantum field generators. But these are different. Admiral Chen's hologram materialized in the chamber, his presence bypassing every Imperial security measure. Those aren't weapons, Supreme Lord. They're choice generators. What trickery is this? Vexthor demanded, his scales shifting to deep crimson. Humanity's final technology, Chen explained calmly. We've created localized probability fields around every Imperial world. Within these fields, we can control which version of reality becomes manifest. Not just the laws of physics, but the very flow of time and possibility itself. Screens throughout the chamber activated, showing Imperial worlds surrounded by networks of crystalline structures. Humanity's ultimate achievement. These devices didn't just manipulate reality. They curated it, selecting which of infinite possible timelines would become real. Dr. Harrison's voice joined the transmission. We can choose realities where your weapons never existed, where your empire chose peace over war, where different choices were made at every crucial moment in history. We're not going to destroy you, Supreme Lord. We're giving you a choice. In Bastion Alpha's command center, Chen watched as the Empire's leadership grappled with this revelation. Humanity hadn't just mastered space, time, and physics. They had learned to navigate the very branches of possibility itself. To demonstrate, Chen continued, observe. In the space around a single Imperial world, reality flickered. In an instant, all Imperial weapons and ships simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but shifted to a timeline where they had never been built. The planet itself remained unchanged, its civilian population untouched. That was one possibility, Chen explained. We can also access timelines where your empire evolved differently, where you chose cooperation over conquest, where you became shepherds of younger races rather than their oppressors. Maya's voice came through the quantum comm. Sir, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from their void ships. They're preparing a desperate strike. Let them try, Chen replied calmly. Show them what happens when they do. As the Imperial Void Fleet launched its attack, reality itself seemed to shudder. But instead of destruction, something extraordinary happened. The void ships found themselves in a bubble of altered spacetime, where their weapons simply couldn't exist. The fundamental forces that made them possible had never evolved in this chosen timeline. You see, Chen addressed the stunned Imperial leadership. We're not fighting you with weapons anymore. We're fighting you with choice itself. Every aggressive action you take, we can simply shift to a reality where it never happened. But the people, the worlds, the civilian infrastructure, all can remain exactly as they are. In the Imperial Palace, Vexthor watched his mighty empire's power dissolve not through destruction, but through the selective editing of reality itself. What do you want? The same thing we wanted from the beginning. Ambassador Chen's hologram appeared alongside the admirals. Peace, cooperation, an end to empire, and the beginning of a true galactic community. We can help you transition to this new reality gradually, selecting timelines where your civilization evolved towards peace rather than conquest. And if we refuse, then we'll be forced to choose a timeline where the empire never rose to power at all, Chen stated grimly. We don't want that. Those probability paths exist, but using them would erase trillions of lives from existence. We're offering you a chance to evolve, not to end. Throughout Imperial space, reality stabilized as humanity's probability fields maintained their gentle but unbreakable grip on causality itself. The mighty empire, which had ruled through force for millennia, found itself facing an enemy that could literally choose which version of history would become real. In Bastion Alpha, The command staff watched as Imperial ships stood down across the galaxy. The void ships powered down, their reality-breaking weapons rendered obsolete by humanity's mastery of possibility itself. "Send the terms," Chen ordered. "Show them the timeline we've chosen, one where the Empire transforms into a federation of equals, where their technology and culture aren't destroyed, but redirected toward cooperation and growth." As the terms were transmitted, Dr. Harrison's hologram smiled. "They're beginning to understand. We didn't build all this to destroy them. We built it to help them become something better." The great Imperial fleet, once the most powerful force in the galaxy, hung dormant in space. The Empire's leadership, faced with an enemy that could literally choose which version of reality would persist, finally understood the true meaning of power. It wasn't about destruction. It was about the ability to choose a better path. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their mastery of physics, their quantum technologies, or even their probability manipulators. It was their determination to use that power not for destruction, but for transformation. The galaxy would remember this not as the day the Empire fell, but as the day humanity showed them a better way. They had conquered not through force, but through the power to choose the best of all possible worlds. As the Empire's formal surrender was transmitted across the quantum network, Admiral Chen looked out at the stars. In countless possible timelines, this moment had ended in destruction. But humanity had chosen a different path, one where even their greatest enemies could become their strongest allies. The war was over. The real work of building a better galaxy was about to begin.